Hi, friends. Welcome back to the Cripple Chronicles. My name is Becca and I am your host. I've not got my notes up in front of me because I've been having some technical difficulties trying to get my microphone to start recording. My camera might move a wee bit because it is currently placed on my bed and Simba is sitting exactly right next to it. So I'm going to take a momentary break to get my notes up because my mind has gone totally blank now that I've started recording. On today's episode, I have quite a few things to touch on during the main section of the podcast. Some life things that have been going on with me, like picking up my car eventually, taking a wee trip to Leeds, which, by the way, I did not drive myself because I think that would have probably been insanity, and thinking about things in day-to-day life that make my life easier in terms of accessibility. Then in the next episode, I'm going to chat about the stuff in life that since becoming disabled I have realised is quite inaccessible and kind of needs a bit of a change. I was going to do it in today's episode, kind of do the contrast all in one episode. However, I'm just not feeling up to it today, to be honest, and I think I've got quite a lot of information just talking about the good parts that's what I'm going to do for today. Before I start, I am going to go over the usual bits and pieces. Please follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Cripple Chronicles Pod. If you are watching on YouTube, please give the video a little like and subscribe. If you are listening on audio platforms, please rate and review. Anything you would like to get in contact with me about, please drop an email to cripplecchroniclespod@gmail.com. Let's get into this week's episode. Where to start? I am not going to tease you and keep you waiting too long, so I'll kind of go in chronological order, which means I am going to speak about picking up my car first. I got a call maybe a month ago out of the blue when Ryan was over for dinner, and I really wasn't expecting it because they had said that I would get an email kind of when my car had been manufactured and then when it was going to the dealership and then hopefully when it would be ready for me to pick up. However, this phone call was to tell me that the dealership hadn't got confirmation that they were getting delivered the car until they were getting it basically the next week. That meant that my adaptions had to be fitted to my car and then it was going to be ready for me to pick up hopefully by the end of September. My car got delivered. They made the adaptions because to drive my car, I need a left foot accelerator. And then I was ready to go and pick up my car last Monday. I was really wanting a yellow or orange car. They are my favourite colours. It is just my vibe. But the car that I was getting, it wasn't available in yellow or orange. So I thought about getting it wrapped, but at that time I didn't realise how much money it was to get a car wrapped, and because it's Motability, I'm only going to have it for a few years. It's really not worth it for the price. So I just went for red, but that fits in quite well. My dad came and picked me up, and my stepmum Sarah came too, so that I had some company for the drive home following my dad. We got to Arnold Clark. We went through all of the paperwork. I got my keys and then I went out and get into the car. The Motability advisor kind of walked me through what all of the buttons do, how to move the wing mirrors, what the console does in the middle, how to kind of connect it up to my phone, how to get the maps working. The car that I had previously was a wee Renault Twingo that was like 2010. So for me to have my phone connected, I had to have like one of the wee adapters that you have in like the cigarette lighter adapter place. I don't even think that's like cars don't come with cigarette lighters anymore. I don't even know if those things are still in new cars. That's actually something that I'm going to check when I go out in my car later to see if it still has one of them. Anyway, it took me a few drives to kind of get my bearings. Initially, the first time that I went out in the car, I didn't realise that I hadn't actually turned the ignition on yet, and I was wondering why, like, the steering wheel wasn't moving and why it wasn't going, and I was like, what the fuck, but the car's on, like, the screens are on, but it turns out that I hadn't quite turned the key all the way to turn the ignition on, but I figured that out pretty quickly, and then I was going out when it was raining, or I had, like, accidentally flicked my windscreen wipers when I was getting out of the car, and when I turned the car back on, I couldn't figure out how to turn my windscreen wipers off. And it is definitely a blessing that I have got a new car because it means that the lights come on automatically. Before, when I had my car, I used to have a reminder set on my phone to go off any time that I went into the car to remind me to turn the lights on, because I would be out driving and people would flash at me, and I'm like, why are they flashing at me? Oh shit, I've not got my lights on. It's taken some time to adapt to it and kind of get used to driving and being in a car again, because it has been a long period of time. But anyway, I've kind of jumped forward a wee bit, kind of talking about after I got the car. We went through the bits and pieces, and then before I took the car to drive home, we went on a little test drive with me, the Motability advisor, my stepmom Sarah, and my dad, and it felt like a driving lesson on crack. Like, I just felt like, oh my god, all of these people are like watching me, what I'm doing, and I was just so in my own head. But I felt so much more comfortable when it was just me and Sarah in the car, and she had kind of said to me like, how does it feel? And I was like, good. And she was like, does it just feel good? And I was like, nah, it feels fucking amazing. Like, it is so odd being back in the car again and feeling the way that I did before I had my accident. Like, driving excites me. It feels natural when I'm driving in the car and I've got my music on and I'm singing along. Like, I just feel in my element, and I'm just so happy that that is something that I'm still able to do, and the fact that I'm still able to do it, I think, is down to me because I have been so determined to get there. I had spoke about it quite a bit after my accident that driving was always one of the main things that I wanted to do again, and I had a really fucking bad experience which changed the whole course of my life, but I didn't want that to stop me from doing something that I loved. I was definitely an anxious driver before I passed my test. It took me quite a while to pass my test, so much so that my first theory test expired and I had to sit it again. Passed it that time as well, first time both goes. I mean, it was borderline passes, but there were passes, and that is what matters. I was confident in my driving, but I was more anxious about other road users. But like I said, I do feel a sense of calm when I'm driving, and I've really started trying to focus my energy on my bubble and what I'm doing, because I find if I'm driving on two-lane roads when there's cars, especially lorries, kind of up next to me, I do feel myself getting anxious and almost like I'm trying to like shrink myself in, but I'm in a big car. Like, me pushing my shoulders in doesn't make my car smaller, but it's still just that fear of something coming into the side of me. Although the anxious thoughts aren't as prominent that something is going to happen, there is still that kind of body reaction. I still get kind of going to the other side of the road and being kind of closer to the side of the road than I am to kind of other cars, just because of the experience I had, but it's not going to stop me from doing it. It is a lot easier for me having my car now not to think about public transport, going down to kind of get the bus or worrying about getting on the train and that kind of length of time and talking about kind of getting on the bus, I have actually realised something that I forgot to mention had happened just before I picked up my car. I was going to go get the bus to go into Glasgow for the day and I had a bit of an accident. I was really cutting it fine to get to the bus on time and I was rushing a wee bit and whilst I was going down the hill to the bus stop, I caught my foot underneath my wheelchair and it was one of those where I could see it happening whilst it was happening, but I couldn't stop it. I managed to kind of slow my wheelchair down to a halt, but the force of that was just too much that it flung me out of my chair onto the pavement. I grazed my knee up, but the first thing I thought of when I was on the ground was to check over my leg. I've got plates in my leg. It was a bit swollen, but pressing down on it, it was sore. I could bend it, I could move it. I wasn't in any kind of deep pain other than the pain of the fact that I had grazed my knee. There was two wee boys that were maybe like 10 out on a scooter and a bike and they had came up to me like, "Hi miss, do you need some help?" And I was like, "Yes please, but can you go get an adult because I'm not sure you're going to be able to help me get back into my chair." Because after I'd checked myself over, the next thing I was thinking was, right, how am I going to get back into my wheelchair here? Because I think I could have usually pushed myself up, but the dunt that I had just taken to my leg, it felt very weak. Thankfully, I was very lucky. Some community spirit. Two people came out of a house kind of down the way. They asked me what I needed. I asked if they would help me back into my chair. They lifted me up. A woman offered me a glass of water and I said, actually I was rushing to make the bus and it's not going past, so I'm just going to carry on. Went down to the bus stop and the two wee boys who had offered me help as I was getting onto the bus came down and had said, "Hi miss, just checking you're all right," which was really nice. Like, it was handy that it happened on a weekend. There was people around, and I'm really glad that the people that came to help me reacted in the way that they did. They didn't kind of treat me any different to somebody else having a fall that you would help up, which is something that I find really important. So, my first fall, and I handled it like the bad bitch that I am. Eleanor had texted me to say that I was really punk for just getting up and getting on with my day because I could have really easily just turned round and went back home. Like, I wasn't really that far from the house. And I did think about it, but I didn't want it to ruin my day. It was kind of just like when you trip over as a kid and you graze your knee and like you just want to go back out and play with your pals. Anyway, now that I have recited the story of me launching myself out of my wheelchair, let's get back to car things. I got home from the dealership with no issues, and Sarah had said that it was a really good drive and how proud of me she was. And I had got little bits and pieces to kind of make the inside of my car more Becca. I'm a flower power kind of gal, so I have little flowers on the inside dash, kind of up the side. I have a sunflower steering wheel cover. I've got a little flower cushion that goes under my butt for maybe when I'm feeling a bit less comfortable if I have to drive for a long time. I am planning on getting some sunflower seat covers. I have a little air freshener that says "Hot Girls Drive Safe," and then I have like a few little like Halloween figurines on the dashboard, which are so cute. I think I need to get a little booklet for my blue badge as well because I've just started keeping that in my car, but I find that it kind of slides across the dashboard and distracts me sometimes, so I need it to be kind of stuck in place, I think. For now, I think that is kind of the customization level that I'm going to go to with my car. That's what I'm telling myself anyway, but I know for a fact that like in a month or two I'm going to see something and be like, "Oh my god, my car needs that." Also, by the way, she is called Shona the Arona because why not? With her cute little P plates on as well. not P for just past, P for paranoid driver. In the week and a bit that I have had my car, I have driven over 300 miles, as well as being able to hop out of the car with my crutches and fill up my car with petrol. I'm going to come back to this a bit later on when I talk about accessibility, because there was something that I didn't realise was available, which I actually used yesterday, so I'm going to kind of talk about that a wee bit. On Sunday, Eleanor was meant to be doing a craft show down in Leeds that I wanted to be able to go to, but I knew with getting my car, a reduction in benefits, and all of the other outgoings that I have with money, that I wasn't going to be able to afford to get the train down and get a hotel. And I also knew that it was too soon after getting my car for me to drive down, even though I really wanted to try it. So then came another little plan with a guy that I am currently seeing at the moment. He is also a wheelchair user and he has a PA, and he spoke to them to be able to plan for us to go to Leeds to show our support for Eleanor. At this point, this was all a surprise, and I was almost bursting at the seams to tell her, like, I'm going to see you this week. But I had to keep it quiet, and it was so difficult. She made so many cool little bits and pieces and would call me to show me all of the new stuff that she was making, and I loved it all so much. There's a few wee pieces that I have just now, and if you like them when she has more of an online presence, you're going to be hearing more about it, because they are all so pretty, and I am here for talking up my pals and supporting the things that they are doing, because man, it is honestly so cool. I had a wee idea this morning where I had said to her, like, I want to get some spoke covers for my wheelchair, and I've said, like, if I buy them and send you them, you can do whatever you want to them and send me them back. So that is something really exciting. Once we've kind of got that together, I will be showing off my cool wheelchair made by Eleanor. Unfortunately, last week she had been feeling unwell at the start of the week, and she was really unsure if she was going to be able to do the market, and I really wanted to tell her at that point that we were planning on going down to Leeds, but I knew that if I did that, that she might feel pressured to kind of go through with it, even though she wasn't feeling 100%. And I really didn't want that to happen. I kind of spoke to her on Sunday morning as I was in the car, and she had said that she wasn't really feeling well and she didn't know if she was going to be able to do it. And then our partner Jonathan messaged me 20 minutes before we were meant to leave to say that she was really too unwell. She'd been up sick all night. So I had to break the surprise, because I wanted to ask her if, even if she was unwell, if she still wanted a visit, and that was down to her to decide. I could have went through Jonathan, but I didn't just want to turn up if she wasn't feeling up to it. So I phoned her and I let her know about our little plan, and she was shaking and nearly started crying on FaceTime, and also called me a bitch and said that she couldn't believe that I was going to do that to her in public. But we then set off down to Leeds, and we got into Eleanor's house and we had some lovely food, and it was really nice just to spend some time in each other's company and then be able to head back up the road. I'm not going to lie, the impact that the journey had on my body was quite a lot. I had, like, we were kind of bunched up in the front, so either my stump was getting squished to start off with whilst I was on one side, and then I thought the other side would be better, but it turned out that I was kind of leaning on it more and putting more pressure through it. I was kind of quite achy, quite sore, and I had never been to Eleanor's house without a leg before I had my prosthetic on, but I didn't wear my prosthetic on Sunday because I didn't think I was going to need it. Thankfully, I took my crutches though, as they were already in my car, which means I hopped up 8 stairs outside Eleanor's and another four inside, and my body was definitely feeling it. I was overwhelmed. My brain was just kind of buzzing because I get so many good and happy and positive feelings when I'm in Eleanor's company and in our house. It is just such a nice environment, but it was a lot for me. It was a lot for my body, and I was just around people that were aware of that and would accommodate for how my brain was, and that is just such a lovely feeling, and I would do it a million times over if I had to. I don't know if it's a possibility this year as we are getting into the winter months. I think next week the temperature has to drop, and with my accident being from black ice, I am definitely a bit more anxious about driving during the winter. But I really want to be able to kind of go down to Leeds and see Eleanor Faye and Jonathan. I want that to be a possibility, but I know that it doesn't need to be right away. I need to be comfortable to do it. And my car also has what's that called? The thing that you can use on the motorway. I was going to say autopilot, but I don't think that's what it's called. Anyway, my car kind of has that speed control, whatever it is. I can't remember the name, but when the guy was kind of going through all the parts, I said, look, don't explain that to me right now because I just need the basics. Cruise control, that's what it's called. I don't need to know about cruise control right now. When I'm doing longer distances, I'll come back and you can tell me how to use it. So until I do that, I will not be driving to Leeds because I think that is probably something that's going to be needed just to give my leg a bit of a rest. Now, I want to move on to the section of this episode where I am going to talk about accessibility. The structure I kind of wanted to take for this section was actually an idea I had got from an Instagram video that I had seen, which was everything that makes my day accessible. So I wanted to take some time to think about different accessibility features that there are in day-to-day life which make things easier for me. And then in the next episode, looking at the other side of things that are harder, inaccessible, and what potentially needs to be changed. Some of these accessibility features that I am going to mention next don't always work out in the way that they should, and that is a problem. So, when I think about basic accessibility features, the first thing that comes to my mind is my flat. I have level access to get into my flat, which means there's no ramp needed, no steps or stairs that I need to navigate, and my flat is all on the one level, which means there is no steps or stairs or ramps on the inside that I need to navigate. My doors are all wide enough for me to get about and move around my flat with ease in my wheelchair. The wheelchair that I had previous to the one that I'm in now was actually bigger than the one I've got, and I had no issue kind of getting that through the doors in my flat. The light switches that I have in my flat are like push pad switches, and they are on a level with where I am at. I kind of think of them as the ones that you kind of usually see in apartments when you're on holiday, mostly in Spain is what is coming to my mind. I don't need to overstretch to reach them, and they are big switches where anybody that has kind of motor issues in their hand would have no issue with the switches that I have in my house, hopefully, in my opinion. I don't know, that's me just guessing. I have a lot of space in my living room and kitchen, considering kind of the space of my flat. It is a one bedroom flat, but there is a lot of space in these rooms for me to be able to move and turn in my wheelchair. There isn't really anywhere where I have issue with my wheelchair turning circle other than in the bathroom, which when I moved in, when I had the frame on my leg, I wasn't able to sit in the shower kind of the way that you're meant to, like facing the wall, because it's too small a box where I couldn't have my leg out straight because it wasn't big enough. So I had to kind of face out into the bathroom, meaning that when I would shower, it would kind of flood the bathroom a bit. So I got a temporary screen that I would put round, which would keep all of the water in the shower, and they kind of adapted the shower as well because the wet wall didn't go all the way around. My toilet needed moved slightly so that I was able to kind of have the shower chair over the toilet, and they also swapped out the sink that I had for one that had no pedestal underneath it, so that when I had the frame on my leg, that there was a lot more room for maneuver within the bathroom. The OTs were really, really proactive in working with me and trying to get the flat as accessible for me as possible. When I got my couch delivered, I was also in contact with the OTs because it came and I realised that it was actually a bit lower than I needed it to be. So I got some little razors put on the bottom of my couch so that it's higher up so that I'm able to sit on it comfortably and get back up off it. I think in my kitchen, my counters are just standard height and there is no adjustment in them, which is probably one of the only downsides to accessibility in my flat, apart from my wardrobe doors, which I'm going to speak about next week. I didn't realise that in the kitchen you could get kind of counters that move up and down. It was somebody else that had kind of told me about them, which I think would be very handy for an accessible flat because you don't know who's going to move in and what their needs might be. So I actually have a multi cooker and a smaller table that I use for when I am cutting veg and when I'm kind of frying things. If I'm making like soup, boiling potatoes, kind of pasta, I'll do that on the hob because it doesn't require a lot of attention. However, if I am making something like fajitas or chili or something that needs to kind of be stirred and adjusted and added to, I'll make it in my multi cooker on a lower level so that I can easily see over it. I'm not having to stand up and strain myself or tire myself out too much. When I moved into my flat, I also signed up for a scheme which I had some issues with initially, but it is all sorted now and my bins are marked. And when the bin men come round every week, they go into my garden, they go into my garden, take my bins out, and then they empty them and put them back because I myself can't take my bins out. However, when it first started, they weren't taking my bins out, so I was having to get people to put my bins out, and because I was getting people to put my bins out, they then said I was able to put my bins out because I was sitting with like 4 weeks of rubbish, like either in my house or outside, and it was disgusting. Another accessibility feature that kind of came to mind, or something that makes my life more accessible, is having my car through the Motability scheme. That is a big thing for me. It opens up places to me that maybe don't have the best public transport. For example, where I live has three train stations. Only one of them is accessible to me, and even then, it's not really that accessible because it has a long and gradual steep ramp up to the platform, which means that already takes energy out of me before I've even started the day or gone anywhere. It means that I can get places in half an hour instead of an hour and a half, which, when living life and being in chronic pain, that makes such a difference. I did say that I was going to come back to filling up my car with petrol. It wasn't something that I was aware of, but there is actually an app called Fuel Service that you can download. I went to fill up my car the first time and I got out with my crutches and kind of, it was a bit of a struggle to get to the pump and get the fuel cap open and kind of avoid it and then lean over with my one leg in the crutches to get the I was gonna say the gun to get the I don't know what the squeezy thing for the petrol's called, like, you know what I mean? The squeezy thing. Had to pick that up, put it in. You know how you fill up a car. I'm kind of over explaining it a wee bit here, but I was doing all of that, and although I was very proud of myself for doing it and kind of paying by contactless, not having to go in and speak to anybody or tire myself out or take my wheelchair out of the car, I did it and I was quite chuffed with it. But I noticed a wee sticker on the side of the pump that it said, like, disabled, need assistance, download this app. So I downloaded the fuel service app. Not all fuel stations are a part of this. However, I used it yesterday when I was out. I also have another app where I was checking the prices of fuel, so I kind of found the cheapest one, went on to the fuel service app. I clicked that I was going to be there within the next half an hour because I thought it'll probably be 15 minutes. You pull up at the petrol station, you put what pump number you are, they come out, ask you what petrol it is, ask you how much you want, put in, fill up your car. You then give them the cash or you give them the card to do it contactless, and that's it. It was so easy. I didn't have to get out of my car, not have to leave the driver's seat. That saved me a lot of energy because if I had to do what I had done kind of the week previously, I would have been a bit gubbed. One other thing that I'm thinking about when it comes to driving, I had been looking at driving into the Glasgow city centre as I was going to meet one of my pals for dinner the other day, and I found an app which is bluebadgeparking.com, and it tells you all of the areas, especially in Glasgow city centre, that have parking bays on the street. It also tells you where there are multi-storey car parks that have blue badge parking bays. It tells you how many bays there are, and this isn't just the UK. When I kind of zoomed out, you can see all of the other countries, and they have quite a few noted in places like Spain, Portugal, and like Australia, New Zealand. I also checked America. There wasn't kind of a lot of information for America, but a few states did have a few places where it had kind of blue badge parking. So that was something that I found very handy because a lot of the time I struggle to find accessibility information online. I don't think it is a big thing that people push, and most of the time, if you're on a website and it takes you to accessibility, it is usually talking about the accessibility of the web page and not actually the place that you're going. But I'm going to probably rant a wee bit more about that next week, to be honest, because it is something that really irks me. I was just about to go on to the kind of things in the outside world that I was thinking of when it came to accessibility. However, one more thing I'm going to mention is something that I had mentioned in a previous episode. I might have mentioned it a few times, but it is the passenger assist app, which means you can book assistance for getting on the trains, which makes things more accessible. And it just makes me feel more comfortable having an app to book something because of the attitudes of some members of staff when you just turn up unannounced in a wheelchair at a train station. But get onto that at a later date. Um, when I think of going outside, there are some different accessibility features that come to mind, such as dropped curbs, being able to actually get off the pavement, cross the road, get back onto the pavement safely, tactile pavement to know when there is a curb coming. It is especially good for people who have visual impairments. Um, Again, traffic lights beeping, having a longer time to get across the road. Um, I don't know if they've actually phased them out. There's been a few traffic lights that I've not seen with it on it, but I know in the UK they have a bit on the bottom that spins for kind of hearing impaired people because they can't hear the beep going off. So that kind of spins to let them know when to cross the road. Ramps where there are stairs. It is wild the amount of places that have steps and no ramps in 2023. lifts and elevators, especially in kind of shopping centres, car parks, but also when I was in Leeds before, they had quite a lot of the lifts that are just kind of wheelchair lifts. Are not like an actual elevator. I'm going to try and see if I can kind of get a picture to stick it in on the YouTube version, because I can think of, like, I can picture what I'm talking about, but I can't quite describe it right now, which is terrible, I know, but we're 42 minutes into recording right now, and my brain is starting to go a bit mushy, to be honest. So bear with me, I'm nearly there. Level door handles, push plates, automatic doors. These are things that make things really accessible and easy for me when I'm outside. Automatic doors and push plates are the main thing. The amount of places that have pull doors and you're trying to pull it open and reverse in your chair. A lot of places that have push doors, if they're not automatic, I will use my foot, but I have no other way to open the door. I'm not going to like put my foot on the glass on purpose to make it dirty. I'm just trying to have access. Something that comes to mind when I think of that is the gym that I go to. They have automatic doors and push plates. However, they have not been in use since I started using the gym nearly a year ago. So that is wild. Also, doors that are wide enough for wheelchair users is very important, especially in places like medical centres, opticians, things like that. Places where I've been where sometimes there still is very cramped spaces, and you know I am coming in a wheelchair. If you have a dedicated room, can you please book it, because it makes me anxious being in a tight space. I already feel like I'm taking up room and you can't get past me and things like that. And it's just accessibility, not having to kind of scrunch myself up to try and turn round because it's a really small room. Or a lot of the time I find it talking about wider door frames, I have to stop pushing myself with my wheels and take my arms and kind of use the door frame to push myself through, because there's not enough room, and that's something that I don't enjoy. I did kind of say that I was going to not really talk about the downsides today, but I've started kind of doing that anyway. So this is just a little bit of a teaser for the next episode. I'm at my third last thing for today. If there has been any accessibility features that I have not mentioned in this kind of list, any things that you think that make your life more easy, is that the right grammar? I don't know. Anything that makes your life more accessible that I've forgotten about, drop me a comment, send me an email, let me know, because I would love to kind of mention it when I make the next episode. Third last one is clear walkways, no car parks, like parked too far on the curbs, no bins left in the middle of the pavement, and just having pavements or walkways that are actually a suitable surface. So tarmac, not broken, that are actually wide enough for a wheelchair user. Another thing that I have found that helps make my life more accessible is Ewan's Guide and Access Able, which are websites where I think it is mostly people led, where they kind of leave reviews on accessibility features of places. And whenever I'm going somewhere, I will always tend to try and check on Ewan's Guide if there has been any reviews about it, because I struggle to find any other kind of accessibility information. Mostly the other place I get accessibility information online is off of TripAdvisor, off of reviews of people who have visited a place in a wheelchair, or just kind of phoning up the place. But even then, sometimes you'll phone up somewhere and they'll say, yeah, we are accessible, but, and it's like, if there has to be a but, you're probably not accessible. Another thing which I find makes my life more accessible is clear signposting for things, not giving me a chance to kind of get confused or think I'm going in the wrong place or anything like that. It helps keep my brain healthy when I know where to go, signposting for disabled spaces, disabled toilets, things like that. Even just like when you're in a shopping centre, like having clear signs. Um, yeah, I think there are probably other things that I have forgotten to mention. Like I said, if there is anything that kind of comes to your mind whilst you've been listening to this, please let me know in some kind of way because I would love to hear. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of the Cripple Chronicles. I hope you have enjoyed joining me for some time this week. I am still in the process of figuring out what schedule kind of works best for me in terms of uploading, and I am really kind of just trying to keep the enjoyment, do it when I have the energy. However, podcasts will always be uploaded on a Tuesday, so keep your eyes and ears open. If you are subscribed on YouTube, turn the notification bell on and that'll let you know when there is an episode. You can also turn on notifications on Spotify. You can also turn on notifications on oh my gosh, Spotify, that will let you know when I have uploaded as well. I hope you have a lovely day, week, month, however long it takes me to upload the next episode. Look after yourselves. Bye!